Indeed, a very good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra on this 16th day of February 2018. My name is Wahiga Mwaura and these are some of the big talking points in today's program. Now, first things first, this morning a public inquest to establish the killers of baby Samantha Pendo will start when the case will be mentioned at a Kisumu Magistrates Court. A file was opened at the court as ordered by former DPP Keriako Tobiko. He directed senior officers in command during the incident to face disciplinary action. The former DPP also ordered compensation of the bereaved family for emotional and physical torture experienced after the attack on the 6-month-old baby. Baby Pendo died in August last year after she was reportedly clobbered on the head by police in her parents' house. Later on the big interview, we also talked to human rights activist Okia Omtata, a man who has been described as the people's litigator, the defender of the public, and the defender of the Constitution. We'll be talking about the current state of the judiciary and what keeps him going in his quest for justice through the courts. And meanwhile, on Jamhuri Day last year, President Uhuru Kenyatta presented national awards and honors to Kenyans described as having served the country with distinction. A section of Kenyans, however, expressed displeasure at some of the awardees and questioned the awarding process. We host some of the awardees later on in the program to talk about this head of state commendation. Welcome to the program. Many thanks indeed for staying tuned, and you can talk to us. Our SMS line is 22422. The hashtag is Citizen Extra on our social media platforms, and I will read your feedback throughout the course of the program. But we want to tell you about matters in from State House. Straight after receiving the approval of the National Assembly, the 9 nominees to President Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet are expected to take oath of office this morning. The ceremony will be presided over by the head of public service, Joseph Kinyua, and witnessed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The 9 include outgoing Raw Media Services Chief Operating Officer Farida Karone. You can see her on the screen, nominated to the Ministry of Lands. We also have Richard Achesa for the sports docket, John Munyes for the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. Others are former Meru Governor Peter Munya. You can also see him on the screen there. Former Marsabit Governor Ukuri Atani, also seated at the front there. Simon Chelugui, Professor Margaret Kobia, former DPP Keriako Tobiko, and former Foreign Affairs PS Monica Juma. We are monitoring the situation there, and we'll take you live to State House as soon as that function starts. All right, well, let's get straight into the big interview or kickoff. As we mentioned this morning, a public inquest to establish the killers of baby Samantha Pendo will start when the case will be mentioned at a Kisumu Magistrates Court. The inquest was ordered by the Office of the DPP after police investigators failed to bear fruit. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority recommended disciplinary action against Kisumu County Commander Titus Yoma, OCPD Kisumu East Christopher Mutune, DAPC Kisumu Central Benjamin Koima, and OCS Kisumu Central John Thiringi. Baby Pendo died in August last year after she was reportedly hit on the head by police in her parents' house. The officers were quelling chaos that rocked the lakeside city after President Uhuru Kenyatta was declared winner of the presidential elections. The officers were involved in that, are accused of being involved in that particular incident, and that is one reason, or what has led us to this particular inquest. Let's get straight into the discussion. All right, let's get straight into that discussion, just showing you a little bit just to jog your memory about this particular incident. And joining us in studio to talk about this is Otieno Namwaya, Kenya researcher at Human Rights Watch. Welcome to the program. Pleasure. And many thanks indeed for finding time to be here with us. The public inquest kicks off today. Are you confident that it will bear fruit?
First of all, Wahiga, let me say that it's a good step because we have been calling for investigations from all the killings and other violations that happened in the last election. So this is a very encouraging step. The only issue will be whether after the inquest something will be done.
That is a big question.
That's the question. The other is if the IPOA was unable to establish or identify the culprits, whether the inquest will actually be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay. And then what does history teach us about inquests in Kenya? What is the success rate of inquests in terms of, first of all, being followed through until completion, and then after that, implementation of some of the orders that came out of those particular inquests in terms of the reports that come out?
The inquests on their own, they normally end up very well. A lot of the magistrates who have headed the inquest in Kenya have done very well and have come up with very, very good recommendations. The problem has been the willingness to act on those inquests. If you remember very well, there was an inquest about 10 years ago now. That was Father John Kaiser inquest, which actually came up with very specific recommendations about who was culpable and also who needed to be taken to court. That inquest has never been acted on to this date.
10 years later.
10 years later. That was 2007. Then there was another inquest in Malindi, during which I think, if you remember, police were accused of having executed 5 people. That inquest was very, very thorough. It made very good recommendations. It found that the police had actually executed those people, and it recommended their prosecution. That inquest has not been acted on to this day. And there are several others you can name: Machakos, Molo, I think another one in Migori. And those inquests are not being acted on. There are only a few.
What do we read into this? Reluctance? Lack of follow-through? Is it short-term memory that, once the inquest is now off the papers and people are no longer talking about it, then those responsible feel no need to carry on with implementation? What can we read into this?
Generally inquests are supposed to be done where there's a suspicious death, but there's no immediate suspect. So the inquests are supposed to go beyond the normal investigations and try to explore other possibilities of what could have happened. So generally, the inquest is supposed to come up with a recommendation that is supposed to be enforceable. However, you know that part of the problem that has been there with a number of killings now, baby Pendo case is a case of killing, has been an issue of the political willingness, the political will to actually, one, investigate, and 2, prosecute, and probably convict. Now, when an inquest is done and it recommends certain courses of action, an inquest one is not the position the ODPP has taken, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution has taken, is that they're not binding. So they make recommendations, then the ODPP is supposed again either to now move to a normal court process and prosecute, or recommend further investigations. Now, when it goes to further investigations, it means, again, it's the police who are supposed to investigate. Now, the problem has been the police have not wanted to investigate. That's the reason why even IPOA in the baby Pendo case was unable to identify the specific people who are responsible. If the police were cooperating, they had a commander there. The commander knows who exactly hit baby Pendo. The commander in charge of that group
can tell you who was assigned to which sector.
Yes,
and then narrow down the numbers.
They don't even need to narrow down. They do know who did it.
Specifics.
So they could have given IPOA those names, but IPOA was unable to identify because there was no cooperation within the police. Assuming that the inquest goes around and finally finds that baby Pendo was indeed killed, but it fails again to identify the exact culprit and recommends further investigations. It means we go back to the police to do the same investigations.
So sort of like a roundabout, merry-go-round sort of scenario where we're not actually making progress.
Yeah.
You've spoken about the office of the DPP. We know the former DPP is now at a State House, waiting to be sworn in. How important is the future of inquests like this one on whoever will take over that office once a suitable individual is placed in as the DPP?
Inquests are definitely an important process. So we can't say that it's not important. And I would not say at this stage that inquests have failed. These inquests, on their own, they have succeeded.
On their own, they have succeeded.
What has happened is that when they finally make their reports, the implementation of those reports, or those who are supposed to act on those reports, have not acted. Like in the case of Malindi, I think the police, the ODPP, is supposed to take those police officers to court, but they have simply not done so. In the case of Molo, I think the ODPP again is supposed to take those
Which then makes me ask if, so depending again, how important is it that whoever takes that role of the ODPP in terms of the future of actually executing the recommendations from inquest, what sort of individual are you hoping will assume that role, with what sort of skills, so that we have a change from what we've been seeing in the past? Because we can see a pattern from what you're telling us that they reach a particular point, but from there no further action.
I think in the end it will need to be somebody who will fight for the independence of that office and ensure that it actually delivers. Because the cases we are discussing are highly political cases, like the baby Pendo case. Remember, we are not, in post-election violence, it's not only baby Pendo who died. We are talking of an upwards of 100 people who were killed. Ordinarily, when there is a death where police are involved, and there's no specific suspect, an inquest is supposed to be held. So we would be talking about inquests not just for baby Pendo, but for all the cases of killings during that period. That's not being done. Why? Because of lack of political will. So for as long as there is lack of political will, and assuming that the person who takes over that office is not strong enough to fight for the independence of that office and push for prosecutions, I don't even know how much they can push in the absence of political will. Okay. Then we are still faced with a big problem where this inquest will be done for public relations purposes or for whitewashing the concerns, and then it stalls somewhere.
Okay. What are the latest statistics that we have in terms of post-election violence? I believe your Human Rights Watch did some sort of survey or study last year, came up. I don't know if there's a report out. What sort of numbers do we have just to get an idea of the extent of incidents or acts of violence that were reported last year?
Well, we did put out a report in August. That was for Kisumu alone. And at that time,
Kisumu alone?
Yeah, that was for Kisumu alone. At that time, we talked of 12 cases. But then, after we put out our report, we did find that there were several other cases which we did not include in our report, and upwards of 15 cases. So then, in October, we did put out a joint report with Amnesty International, which found that the report was focusing on Nairobi alone. So in that report, we did find that in total, 67 people had been killed over that period. 67 that includes that 67 includes the 12. So so that is Nairobi and Kisumu was 67. But then we do know that the 67 that we did was just for August alone. We do know that people have been killed were killed in September, October, November. There have been ongoing processes for investigating, trying to document these killings. Nairobi seems to have a very high number of people who were killed, particularly in Kawangware, in Mathare, in Kibera, in Babadogo. Most of those informal settlements, there are a lot of killings. Then there were killings in Kisumu, and there were killings in a few, I think 2 people were killed in Bungoma, and Migori and Homa Bay. Now, the problem is that even if we came up today and said 100 were killed, I think there were more than 100. The problem is that number is not exhaustive.
How do you collect the data? For example, in this particular study, what were some of the ground rules in terms of how to ascertain which information is accurate, is factual, and which might be hearsay or just emotional, outpouring, but not backed by fact?
Our research is very, very thorough. We try to talk to witnesses. We talk to family members. In the Kisumu case, we even went to mortuaries and actually found the bodies there. Some people didn't take the bodies to the mortuaries. So we visited the families and went, in some cases, we went to the funerals. Like in the case of the young man who was shot in the close to Maseno, we went to Masaba mortuary and saw the body and inspected the details. But we also move ahead and talk to police. And now, when you talk to police on the ground, the individual officers talk to you very freely and they tell you what actually transpired. Okay. But then when you move to Nairobi now, you seek an official position from the police. Police have basically refused to engage with us on these killings. Off the record, some senior police officers have told me now this is a very sensitive issue. We are unable to comment. So, but when you write to them officially and say we want you to comment, they don't. They don't comment.
Okay.
So the cases we have listed are those cases we have confirmed beyond any reasonable doubt that this was a killing by police. But we do know that actually those cases could be even half of what actually transpired.
Okay.
That's why we are saying, you know, the capacity of independent bodies like Human Rights Watch or Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is a bit limited. But if police were willing to do their work, what normally happens in such a killing, every other killing that a police officer is involved in, they file a report with their supervisors. So all these killings these records are actually the police. They are able to know whether they're actually 300 people we're talking about or 200 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt you just to let our viewers know what is happening at State House, Stephen, as we continue to await the swearing in of 9 CS nominees. Any minute now, we expect the president to move towards that the podium at the very front so that the process can start. And the pictures that we are now bringing to you are of some of those CS nominees. Peter Munya, who will be moving into East African Community and Northern Corridor Development as the CS. Ukuri Atani, Labor and Social Environment. Outgoing Raw Media CEO Farida Karone will be handling the lands docket. We also have Rashid Achesa, who will be handling sports and heritage. Professor Margaret Kobia, public service. Youth and Gender Affairs, Keriako Tobiko, former DPP, Environment and Forestry, Simon Chelugui, Water and Sanitation, and of course Monica Juma, Foreign Affairs and International Trade. And these are some of the 9 CSs that will be taken through the swearing-in process today. Actually, I think we've shown you all of them right there. And so any minute now, you can see everything is set up. There is that a feeling that this process or this event could kick off shortly, and we know it will be a quick one because the president is expected in Gilgil later today for the NYS pass out. So this shouldn't take too long, and we'll be bringing you these live images periodically, even as we carry on with our discussions in studio. Finally, what do you hope to see in terms of moving forward? What do you hope this inquest will achieve? What are your thoughts regarding what you would love to see?
What I would love to see is something that goes beyond the inquest and something that goes beyond baby Pendo. Remember that even in Nairobi here, we are still talking of one baby Stephanie Mora, who was killed. She was barely 9 years. And there are several other young kids who were killed in the last elections. But then it's not about just the kids. All lives matter. All the killings that happened in that election period need to be thoroughly investigated, and we need to begin to see people being taken to court, people being held to account, so that we stop having this culture where police just go out and execute people and then they come to sit pretty. Yeah. Okay,
and that finally would be what you hope to see. Well, we'll just have to wait and see what will happen in regards to this. And just, of course, for our viewers who may have just joined us, we're talking about the fact that a public inquest to establish the killers of baby Samantha Pendo will start today, when the case will be mentioned at a Kisumu Magistrates Court. A file was opened at the court as ordered by former DPP Keriako Tobiko. He directed senior officers in command during the incident to face disciplinary action. The former DPP also ordered compensation of the bereaved family for emotional and physical torture experienced after the attack on the 6-month-old baby. And just to refresh your memory, baby Pendo died in August last year after she was reportedly clobbered on the head by police in her parents' house. You're watching Citizen Extra. Time now for a quick break. Stay with us.